Hello, welcome. We are going to look at Adobe Flash today. This is going to be less of a tutorial and more of an introduction of just the kind of things that you can do with Flash, and then we'll get into some tutorials. When you start Flash, you'll have this open splash screen here, and I'll choose Flash File Action Script 3. It doesn't really matter which version you use, but I'm just going to go with 3. Okay, so we have a timeline up top here, which shows all the different frames of the animation that we're going to make. In the center here, we have the stage or artboard where all our art will be put, and we have our sort of normal tools and some other different windows, which I won't really look at just yet. Okay, I'm going to draw a ball, and I'm just going to choose the oval tool, and I'll take this ball and draw it like that. It can be whatever color you want. Now notice in this case here, I have object drawing mode on. It's good for at the beginning to have object drawing on, have this selected. If things do kind of something weird that you're not expecting, it might be that you don't have this object drawing mode on. That's a common question. I can show you that later perhaps, or in a different tutorial. Okay, so here's the ball. I'm going to have it go, just for ease of communication, I'm going to go to frame 10. I'm going to insert a keyframe. Now a keyframe are the set frames where I want certain actions to happen. So I'm going to right click on frame 10 and choose keyframe. Now nothing's happened, but I've now set up 10 frames. And on this 10th frame, I'm going to use this selection tool, the black arrow, and move this ball down to the bottom. Okay, so bottom of the artboard. So now for the first 9 frames it's up there, and on the 10th frame it's down at the bottom. I can right click in here, create motion tween, and Flash is able to produce all of the frames in between. Let me just Control Z, undo that. I right clicked, create motion tween, and Flash will put all the frames in between from 1 to 10. So it moves the ball from here on frame 1 to there in frame 10 and drew all the stuff in between. That's why it's called a tween. Now if I go to frame, say, 20, I'll go to frame 20, sure, why not. Insert a keyframe, and I can move the ball back up to its starting position. Now what I do in this kind of case is I would take the ball in frame 20, delete it, go to frame 1 where the ball is, edit, copy, go back to frame 20, edit, paste in place. And that'll put the ball in the exact same place it was at the start. So now I have from 1 to 10, the ball going down. On frame 10 all the way to frame 19, it stays at the bottom. 20, it's back up to the top. So I will right click in the empty space between frames 10 and 20, create motion tween. And now my ball is bouncing. Suppose I want the ball to be, when it hits the bottom of the impact here, down at say frame 10, I want it to be compressing, like the ball is sort of squishy and bouncing. What I can do, let me just undo here. I'm going to go Control Z a couple times. Go back up all the way to the point where I just have the ball hitting the bottom here. I'm going to go to frame 15, insert a keyframe, and I'm going to squish the ball. So I'll take this free transform tool, take the ball, I'll squish it, stretch it to the side a little bit, use the arrow keys on the keyboard, move it down, and now what's happened is the ball falls from frames 1 to 10, and I want to squish it in this region here from 10 to 15. So I'll right click, create motion tween, and now what happens is the ball is squished. Frame 20, I'll right click, insert another keyframe. Now I want to unsquish the ball. So on frame 20, I'll take the black selection tool, click the ball, delete it with the key on the keyboard, go back to frame 10 where the ball looks great, copy it. I can go edit, copy, or Control C on the keyboard. Go to frame 20, edit, paste in place, and now the ball is exactly where it would be after the squish. Right click, create motion tween. And now the ball comes down, squishes back, unsquishes, and I'm at frame 20. it was 10 frames to go down, so I'll do 10 frames to go up. So I'll go to frame 30, right click. Now if you get tired of this right click insert keyframe all the time, I can click there and press F6 on the keyboard. And F6 on the keyboard will automatically put in a keyframe, whatever you prefer. Now I want the ball to be up at the top of the bounce. So I'll go back to the beginning, take this ball, edit, copy, go to the end where I want it to be, delete it off that frame, edit, paste in place, and now the ball's right at that starting position. Right click in here, create a motion tween. So now, if I go Control Enter on the keyboard, or you can go Control Test Movie, you can see our ball. Now it looks a little slow, and especially the squish is a little long. So I'm going to take a moment here, and I'm going to highlight 3 frames in there, right click, remove frames. I'm going to take 3 frames from here, right click, remove frames. I'm going to take 2 frames inside of this part. I'm holding down the left button as I select those, right click, remove frames. Now let's test our movie. That looks a little bit better. Now, people often want to know motion paths. They want to say, well, how can I control where the ball is bouncing or where it's moving? Well, to add a motion guide, we'll right-click, Add Motion Guide, and this allows me to have a new layer in which I can draw a path that this ball will fall on. And so what I'm going to do is go back to the first frame, take the pencil tool, and I'm going to have the ball sort of bounce along like this, okay? So I'm going to start at this height, have it bounce, and bounce off. Okay, something like that. That's my motion guide. If I go back to this first layer, layer 1, take the direct selection tool, I'm on frame 1, on the layer 1, take this ball and you can see how it's trying to snap to things. Snap it to the start of this motion path. I'll go to the end of the motion path, snap it to the end. I'll go to the middle here. At this middle point is when I want it to be squished right on the bottom, so I'll put it on the bottom. This is on the way to the bottom, so I'll snap it over here. And on this frame, it's after the bottom, so I'll snap it there. Let's take a look how this looks. Control Enter, and there goes my ball. So those are motion paths and some introduction to Flash. Now, let me show you shape tweens. Everyone likes shape tweens. I'm just going to go File, New, Action Script 3. So if you think back to when you were younger, perhaps you might have made those little flip books where you drew a little character in the margin and you'd flip all the pages and some little action would happen. I'm going to do something like that now. Here's the pencil tool. Now with the pencil tool, I have 3 different ways to draw. I can have straighten, and what that does is if I draw some sort of wobbly circle, it makes it nice and smooth. It straightens it out for me. I can have smooth, in which case it does almost as much of a straighten, but not quite so much. It just smooths it a little bit out. And lastly, there's just the ink style, which is all exactly how I draw it is how it'll look. I'm going to delete those. And I'm going to grab the pencil, and I'm going to go with smooth. And I'm going to draw a little stick person here. So we've got a couple legs, arms, and a head. Now I'm just drawing with a mouse. It's a little bit harder. I don't have a tablet set up here, but if I did, that would be easy. And I'm going to double click this and call this stick person. That ding you heard there is because I hit enter after I renamed it. I didn't have to hit enter. You can just click elsewhere, but I seem to always do that. I'm going to make a new layer, insert layer, and I'm going to draw a string for a balloon. I'm going to call that string. And I'll make a new layer, and I'll draw the balloon. There we go. There's my balloon, balloon, and I have my little setup. Now what I want to have happen is this balloon to go up and pop. So I'm going to go to frame 15, and I'm going to insert a keyframe on each of these. F6 will allow me just to click and press F6 will give me all the keyframes. And I'm going to move the balloon and the string up to the top here. So I'm on frame 15, grabbing the black selection tool, holding the shift key down. I'm grabbing the string and the balloon, have them both selected, and I will take this balloon up. I'm pressing the up arrow on the keyboard, or I can use my mouse and just drag it up. So it goes up there. Now, like the previous section of this tutorial, I'm going to go in and put in a motion tween. Right click, create motion tween, right click, create motion tween for both the balloon and the string. Now the reason I did them separate is because I want the balloon to pop, and if the balloon pops, the string doesn't pop, it'll fall back down. So that's why I did the balloon on its own layer. Now I want to have one more layer, a ceiling, so I'm going to go new layer, and I want to know where to draw it. This is going to be my ceiling. Oh, I can move it above the balloon. It doesn't. There. Let's keep it all in order. And I'm going to draw the ceiling on frame 15, though it'll be everywhere because there's no tween in there. I'm going to do it on frame 15 so I can see where it needs to be to pop the balloon. It's going to be a very pokey ceiling. There we go. Okay, so there's my ceiling. It'll be in all the frames because I don't have any animations, so I don't really need a keyframe. Just a blank keyframe is fine. So the balloon gets up to here, and that's where it's going to pop. So on frame 15 here, the balloon needs to pop. So what I want to do though, because I want to keep the motion tween separate, I'm just going to go over to frame. Let's go to frame 18 here. I'm going to insert a keyframe, and I'll do it for all of them. F6, F6. I'll just do a keyframe up there just as well. Now, let's take my balloon and pop it. So on frame 18, I'm going to take my selection tool on the balloon layer and delete my balloon. And instead of having my balloon there, I'm going to draw some little lines to sort of show it popping. I went pop, kind of exploding outwards. There we go. There's my popped balloon. It would pop. And that's not bad. If I just run this, Control Enter, it pops. But perhaps I want to have some animation in between here, where it goes from a balloon to being a popped balloon. So what I can do is right-click in that space there and create Shape Tween. And that won't quite work because I forgot I need to break it apart. So what I have to do in order to get this to work is select the balloon and choose Modify, Break Apart. And likewise, right here where all these little popped things are, I'll select all of those, Modify, Break Apart. And now by doing that, I'll be able to put in a shape tween, create shape tween. And it goes from the circle to lines. Let's go Control Enter to look at it. And it puts some little images in between there. Now, perhaps you wanted something a little bit more dramatic with the shape tween. It can be quite nice. Let's do funky ball. We'll do another layer here. Move it to the top. Funky ball. And on the very beginning frame, I'm going to start with a square. Here's my square. It's full of green. I'm going to go over to this last frame, right-click it, insert a keyframe, and I'm going to take this rectangle thing, delete it, put in an oval, and I'll fill it with a different color. So I've gone from that shape to that shape. All I'll do here is right-click, create shape tween, and now let's watch our movie. So shape tweens, motion tweens, all put together, you can have some pretty good animations.